For a long time I couldn't figure out why being around the person I considered my best friend left me feeling like I'd done something wrong, even when I hadn't. Brianna had been in my life for so many years I couldn't remember myself without her, which is exactly why it was so hard to admit the obvious. Every conversation we'd had lately ended with me apologizing for something I didn't even fully understand. At first it was small stuff. I'd tell her at night that I was tired and didn't feel like talking on the phone for an hour, the way she liked to. In response I'd get silence, then a clipped, "Okay, fine, got it," which somehow landed heavier than any fight ever could. I'd immediately start explaining myself, justifying, like I owed her some unspoken obligation to always be available, even though no one had ever actually set that expectation. Then it grew into something bigger. I started noticing that every decision of mine, even ones that had nothing to do with her, somehow became a reason for her to be upset. When I decided to put more energy into my new job, she said I'd changed and gotten cold. When I started dating a guy named Tyler, she immediately found something wrong with him and hinted I was losing myself over a man. And when I just wanted to spend a weekend alone to recharge from work and people, she'd ask if everything was okay, in a tone that made my need for solitude sound like proof something was broken between us. I started living with a constant sense that I owed an explanation for my own life. One time Brianna asked to borrow money, saying it was urgent and she'd pay me back in a month. I lent it without hesitating, because that's what we always did for each other. But when 2 months passed and the money never came back, and I gently brought it up, she responded like I'd just insulted her deepest feelings. "I thought you were a real friend, not an accountant," she said, and instead of holding my ground, I started apologizing for bringing up money at all. The worst part was I didn't even notice how deep this had gotten under my skin. I started avoiding sharing good news, because I knew, if something good happened to me, she'd find a way to shrink it down or turn the conversation back to herself. If I got a promotion at work, she'd immediately bring up how hard things were for her right now, and I'd instantly feel like I had to apologize for my own success, like it was somehow rude. If I said I was happy with Tyler, she'd bring up her last painful breakup and look at me like my happiness was an insult next to her pain. I started thinking maybe I really was the selfish one. Maybe I really did think too much about myself and not enough about her. And that feeling of guilt became so routine I stopped even fighting it. I just carried it around like it was normal, like it was part of my personality. One night, when I really needed support because I'd had a serious conflict with management at work and was scared of losing my job, I called Brianna hoping for even a little understanding. Instead, she spent 20 minutes telling me how hard things were for her because of some personal issue of her own. And instead of getting support, I spent the next hour comforting her. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time and it suddenly hit me clearly. I couldn't remember the last time being around her left me feeling lighter instead of carrying more guilt. But even that realization didn't make me change anything right away. Too many years of friendship stood behind us, too many shared memories, too much fear of looking ungrateful or like a bad person. I kept tolerating it, kept explaining myself, kept feeling guilty for simply living my life the way I thought was right. The turning point came when I ran into our mutual friend Megan, someone I hadn't seen in a while. She took one look at me and asked if I was okay, because I looked exhausted. And when I started telling her, almost without thinking, about my last conversation with Brianna and the guilt that had been following me around for years, Megan's face went serious, and she said something that changed everything. "It's about time you found out what she's actually been telling people about you." I froze with my coffee cup in hand, not immediately understanding what she meant. Megan sighed and said she'd stayed quiet for a long time because she didn't want to get involved in someone else's friendship, but now she could see the silence was only hurting me. She told me that for the past 2 years, Brianna had been telling their mutual friends a completely different version of our friendship. That I was the one always borrowing money and never paying it back, when it was actually the opposite. That I'd stolen the guy she broke up with 2 years ago, even though that man had never even met me. That I was jealous of her success and sabotaging her life with little schemes. Megan even showed me a message Brianna had sent her months earlier, with these exact accusations written out in plain text. I read the messages on Megan's phone screen and felt the ground shift under me. Everything I'd spent years feeling guilty for turned out to be a mirror image of what Brianna had actually been accusing me of behind my back. She hadn't just been making me apologize for my own life to my face, she'd been building a reputation around me as someone I'd never actually been, to justify her own behavior to everyone else. I barely slept that night, replaying every year of our friendship, every conversation, every wave of guilt, all of it now taking on a completely different meaning. I realized I wasn't dealing with just a difficult friend with a hard personality. I was dealing with someone who had, consciously or not, spent years shifting responsibility for her own fears, failures, and jealousy onto me, while building herself an image as the victim. The next day I texted Brianna that we needed to meet and talk. She immediately asked, as always, if I was okay, in that same worried tone she typically opened with before conversations that ended in me feeling guilty. But this time that tone didn't work on me the way it used to. We met at the same coffee shop we always went to, and I sat across from her with my hands flat on the table so she wouldn't see them shaking. I told her directly, no hints, no softening, that I knew about the messages with Megan, and that I knew exactly what stories she'd been telling other people about me. Brianna tried to deny everything at first, saying it was a misunderstanding, that Megan must have gotten it wrong or twisted it on purpose. Then, when I showed her the screenshot Megan had let me forward myself, she got angry and turned it around on me, saying I was digging behind her back and turning our mutual friends against her. And that's the moment I finally understood something I hadn't been able to see for years. She was never going to admit fault, because her entire pattern was built on making sure I was always the one who ended up guilty. "You've spent years making me feel guilty for things I never even did," I told her quietly, but firmly, looking her straight in the eye. "For my happiness, for my success, for the money I lent you, for my own life that I had every right to live the way I wanted. And this whole time you were also telling other people lies about me, to look better at my expense." Brianna went quiet, and for the first time in years I saw something on her face that wasn't hurt or manipulation, but something closer to the confusion of someone who's suddenly been seen exactly as they are. "I'm done apologizing for being happy," I continued, standing up from the table. "And I don't want a friendship where my joy gets treated as an insult and my trust gets used against me." I left cash on the table for my coffee and walked out without waiting for her response, because for the first time in a long time I didn't need her approval to know I'd done the right thing. That night I didn't feel empty or lonely, the way I'd assumed I would once I finally worked up the nerve to do this. Instead I felt something strange, almost forgotten, lightness, like for the first time in ages I could breathe fully without wondering who I owed something to and why. Brianna and I don't talk anymore. Megan told me later that Brianna tried telling her version of events to some of the other mutual friends too, but this time barely anyone believed her, because too many people already knew the truth. Sometimes I see her photos through mutual friends on social media, and I don't feel anger, more like a quiet sadness for all those years I believed friendship had to mean carrying constant guilt. Now I know for certain, real friendship is never built on someone else's guilt, and if you feel guilty for your own life just by being around someone, that isn't friendship. It's something else entirely, wearing the wrong name.